They say family is everything, but sometimes family is the very thing that destroys you from within, piece by piece, until you forget who you were meant to be. The crystal chandeliers of the Beverly Hilton cast their golden glow across the marble floors, each beam of light mocking the darkness I carried in my chest. I stood near the service entrance, my fingers nervously adjusting the collar of my simple blazer, while Los Angeles elites swirled around me in their designer suits and couture gowns. This was supposed to be a celebration, the rehearsal dinner for my sister Victoria's wedding, to Marcus Sterling, heir to a pharmaceutical empire. Instead, it felt like standing before my own execution. My name is Vincent Chase, though in this glittering ballroom full of people who had known me since childhood, I might as well have been invisible. 28 years old, with a master's degree in finance from UCLA that I'd earned working nights at a warehouse to pay for it, and yet here I was, relegated to the shadows while my older sister commanded the spotlight she believed was her birthright. The weight of exhaustion pressed against my temples as I watched Victoria glide across the room in her $12,000 Oscar de la Renta dress. Every gesture calculated, every laugh perfectly timed to draw maximum attention. She had always been this way, even as children growing up in our Bel Air mansion. While I studied in the garage because she'd convinced our parents I didn't deserve a proper study room, she hosted elaborate parties in her wing of the house. Our parents died in a plane crash 5 years ago, leaving behind Chase Industries, a real estate development empire worth over $300 million. The will split everything equally between us, but Victoria had immediately maneuvered for control, convincing me in my grief-stricken state to sign over power of attorney. She'd promised to handle the burden of corporate responsibilities while I finished my education. Like a fool desperate for family connection, I'd trusted her. The truth revealed itself slowly, like rust eating through metal. The monthly stipend she gave me from my own inheritance barely covered rent for a studio apartment in Koreatown. When I'd asked about dividend payments, she'd shown me doctored financial statements indicating the company was struggling. Meanwhile, she lived in a penthouse overlooking the Pacific, drove a new Lamborghini every year, and threw parties that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight, I had planned to finally confront her, to demand what was rightfully mine. But watching her command the room with such effortless cruelty, that familiar paralysis crept through my bones. This was her gift, making me feel insignificant in my own life. Victoria's voice rang out as she tapped her champagne flute with a silver spoon. The room fell silent immediately, hundreds of eyes turning to her as if drawn by magnetic force. Thank you all for joining us for this magnificent evening. Before we begin dinner, I want to acknowledge everyone who made this possible. She went through her list, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Then her eyes found mine across the room, and that familiar predatory smile curved her lips. And of course, my dear brother Vincent is here somewhere, probably lurking by the walls as usual. Vincent, why don't you come up here so everyone can properly see you? Blood drained from my face as hundreds of eyes swiveled toward me. This was Victoria's specialty, transforming what should have been a simple acknowledgement into public humiliation. I forced my feet to move, each step feeling like walking through wet cement. There he is, Victoria announced as I reached her side. My little brother, always trying to blend into the wallpaper. You know, I begged him to wear something appropriate tonight, but he insisted on that department store suit. Some people just don't understand the importance of presentation. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Their eyes dissected me, comparing my simple attire to their designer ensembles. The suit had cost me 2 weeks of groceries, but next to Victoria's extravagance, I might as well have been wearing rags. Victoria, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. Could we not do this here? Do what? She turned to face me fully, projecting her voice to ensure everyone heard. I'm simply introducing my family, though I use that term loosely. You see, everyone, Vincent here is what we call a family charity case. He exists on the Chase fortune while contributing absolutely nothing in return. The silence that followed was deafening. My hands trembled as bile rose in my throat. This was worse than her usual cruelties. This was complete annihilation. That's not true. I managed to say, though my voice came out barely above a whisper. You know that's not true. I've worked for everything I have. Everything you have? Victoria laughed, the sound sharp as breaking crystal. And what exactly do you have, Vincent? That pathetic studio apartment in Koreatown? That 15-year-old Toyota you drive? The only reason you even have those is because I take pity on you and give you an allowance from the family trust. An allowance that, frankly, you barely deserve. The room began to spin. Years of small cruelties, of being told I wasn't good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, all crystallized in this moment. She was rewriting history, erasing my struggles, my sacrifices, my very existence, and doing it before Los Angeles's most influential people. You want to know the truth? Victoria continued, clearly enjoying herself. I didn't even want to invite him tonight. Marcus convinced me it would look bad if my own brother wasn't at the rehearsal dinner. But honestly, look at him. He doesn't belong here. He's an embarrassment to the Chase name. That's when I felt it. A warm, steady hand settling on my shoulder. The touch was firm, grounding me when I felt like I might shatter. I turned, expecting to see Marcus intervening, but instead found myself looking up at someone I hadn't seen in 3 months. Julian Blackwood stood beside me, all 6'3" of him radiating quiet authority that made the chandeliers seem to dim. His perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit spoke of understated power. The entire room held its breath. "I apologize for my lateness," he said, though his dark eyes were fixed on me, not Victoria. Traffic from San Francisco was brutal. Victoria's perfectly composed mask cracked slightly. "Julian Blackwood? What are you doing here?" He turned to her then, his hand still on my shoulder, and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "I'm here for Vincent, naturally. We had a meeting scheduled to finalize some paperwork. I wasn't aware it conflicted with your event, or I would have suggested another time." "A meeting?" Victoria's voice pitched higher. "What kind of meeting? Vincent doesn't have any business that would concern someone like you." Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick leather folder. The documents inside bore the gold embossing of his venture capital firm. "On the contrary, Miss Chase. Your brother has quite a bit of business that concerns me. In fact, he's recently become my partner in what promises to be an extremely lucrative venture." The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly that even I almost believed it. We had met 3 months ago at a coffee shop in Silver Lake, where I'd been working on financial models for a startup idea I knew would never see daylight. He'd been at the next table, and when my laptop died, he'd offered me his charger. We'd talked for hours about market predictions, investment strategies, the future of fintech. He'd given me his card, told me to call if I ever wanted to discuss my ideas further. I never had. What would someone like Julian Blackwood want with someone like me? But here he was, standing beside me like a shield, and I found myself leaning into his presence even as my mind raced to understand what was happening. "That's impossible," Victoria sputtered. "Vincent doesn't have any money to invest. He can barely pay his rent." "Interesting," Julian said, his tone conversational but with steel underneath. "Because according to the public records I pulled on Chase Industries, Vincent owns exactly 50% of the company. That would make his shares worth approximately $150 million. Hardly someone who should be struggling to pay rent." The silence that followed was absolute. I could see color draining from Victoria's face, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "Those shares are managed by me," she finally managed. "Vincent signed over power of attorney. He's not capable of making those kinds of decisions." "Power of attorney can be revoked at any time," Julian said mildly. "In fact, that's one of the documents we'll be signing tonight, along with the sale agreement, of course." "Sale agreement?" Victoria's voice had gone shrill. "What sale agreement?" Julian pulled a document from the folder, unfolding it with deliberate slowness. "The agreement for me to purchase Vincent's shares in Chase Industries. $150 million, transferred directly to his personal account. Not to any trust, not to any managed fund, but to him and him alone." The room erupted in whispers. $150 million. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. Marcus stepped forward, his expression confused and concerned. "Victoria, what is he talking about?" Marcus asked. "You told me Vincent was financially irresponsible, that he'd squandered his inheritance." "He did." Victoria's composure was cracking, her perfect facade showing fissures. "This is some kind of trick." "He's lying." "I haven't said anything," I pointed out, finding my voice at last. The presence of Julian beside me, the shock on Victoria's face, the murmur of the crowd, it all combined to kindle something in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Courage. Julian is simply stating facts, facts that can be easily verified. "You ungrateful bastard," Victoria hissed, stepping toward me. "You think you can embarrass me at my own rehearsal dinner? You think you can waltz in here with some man and destroy everything I've built?" "Everything you built?" The words erupted from me, years of suppressed rage finally breaking free. "You mean everything you stole? Every opportunity you denied me? Every lie you told about me? You've spent our entire lives making me feel worthless. For what? So you could feel superior? So you could take what was mine and pretend you earned it? How dare you?" Victoria raised her hand, and for a moment I thought she would actually strike me in front of everyone. But Julian moved, subtle but effective, positioning himself between us. "I would think very carefully about your next action, Miss Chase," he said quietly. "There are 300 witnesses here, and I count at least 24 recording on their phones." Sure enough, the soft glow of phone screens dotted the crowd. Los Angeles elite loved nothing more than scandal, and this was premium entertainment. Victoria's hand dropped, but her face had turned an ugly shade of red. "Get out," she spat. "Both of you, get out of my dinner." "Your dinner?" I stepped around Julian, feeling reckless now, feeling free. "Paid for with money from a company I own half of? I don't think so." I reached for a glass of ice water on the nearest table. The crystal was cold against my palm, the water clear and still. I looked at it for a moment, then looked at my sister, standing there in her $12,000 dress with her $500 hairdo and her perfect makeup that couldn't hide the ugliness underneath. You know what, Victoria? You were right about one thing. I don't belong here. Because this? I gestured at the opulent room, the glittering crowd, the excess of it all. This isn't real. It's all smoke and mirrors, just like you. Then I threw the water in her face. The collective gasp from the crowd seemed to suck all oxygen from the room. Victoria stood frozen, water dripping from her hair, her makeup running in dark rivers down her cheeks, her mouth open in absolute shock. You always said I was nothing. I continued, my voice steady now, strong. A shadow, a burden, a disappointment. But shadows can't exist without light, Victoria, and I'm done being your shadow. Marcus moved toward Victoria, pulling out his handkerchief, but she shoved him away violently. Don't touch me, she screamed. This is all your fault. You made me invite him. Victoria, please calm down, Marcus said, but I could see the way he was looking at her now, really looking at her, perhaps for the first time. Calm down? She whirled on him. My brother just assaulted me. He's trying to destroy my life. And you want me to calm down? You destroyed your own life, I said quietly. Every time you chose cruelty over kindness, every time you chose greed over family, every time you chose to tear me down instead of building me up. I'm just finally holding up a mirror. Victoria grabbed a massive centerpiece from the nearest table, roses and orchids arranged in crystal, and hurled it at me. Julian moved to block it, but I put my hand on his arm, stopping him. The flowers hit me square in the chest, scattering petals across the marble floor. The water from the vase soaked through my shirt, cold against my skin. Feel better? I asked. She reached for another vase, but Marcus caught her wrist. That's enough, Victoria. Let go of me. She tried to wrench away from him. Whose side are you on? I'm beginning to wonder that myself, Marcus said, his voice heavy with disappointment. The woman I thought I was marrying would never act like this. The woman I thought I was marrying was kind, generous, caring. But this? This is someone I don't recognize. You don't know what he's done to me, Victoria said, but the fight was leaving her now. You don't know what it's been like, having to manage everything, having to take care of him. With his money, Julian interjected. Let's be clear about that. You've been living off his inheritance while telling everyone he was the burden. Marcus released Victoria's wrist and stepped back. Is that true? Of course it's not true. But Victoria couldn't meet his eyes. Marcus turned to me. Vincent, I'm truly sorry. I didn't know. She told me you were troubled, that you'd made bad decisions, that she was protecting you from yourself. I know, I said. She's very good at telling stories. She's been telling them our whole lives. Marcus looked between us, then back at Victoria. His expression was grave, decided. I need some time to think about this. About us. Marcus, no. Victoria reached for him, but he stepped away. You can't be serious. We're getting married tomorrow. Are we? He straightened his tie nervously. Because I'm not sure I know who you really are anymore. The woman I fell in love with wouldn't treat her own brother this way. She wouldn't lie to me, to everyone. This is all Vincent's fault. Victoria's voice had risen to a shriek. He's poisoned you against me. He's always been jealous of me, always wanted what I had. What you had was mine to begin with, I said. But I don't want it anymore. You can keep the house in Bel Air, the cars, the jewelry, all of it. It's just stuff, Victoria. It doesn't matter. Then why are you doing this? There were actual tears in her eyes now, though I couldn't tell if they were from rage or genuine pain. Because I'm done, I said simply. I'm done trying to earn your love. I'm done accepting scraps of affection. I'm done believing that if I just try hard enough, sacrifice enough, endure enough, you'll finally see me as worthy. You never will, and that's not my failure. It's yours. Julian placed the folder on the table beside us. The papers will be filed Monday morning. Vincent's shares will be sold to my company, and he'll receive full payment within 30 days. Any attempt to interfere with this transaction will be met with immediate legal action. You can't do this, Victoria said, but she sounded defeated now. The company is everything. It's our parents' legacy. No, I said. Our parents' legacy was supposed to be two siblings who loved and supported each other. You destroyed that legacy long ago. I turned to leave, and Julian fell into step beside me. Behind us, I could hear Victoria sobbing, could hear Marcus's quiet voice, could hear the excited chatter of 300 witnesses to the most spectacular implosion of the social season. The night air outside was cool against my wet shirt, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. Really breathe. That was quite a performance, Julian said as we reached his McLaren, the car chirping as he unlocked it. It wasn't a performance, I said. It was long overdue. He opened the door for me, and I slid into the leather seat. It was warm, comfortable, everything the last 28 years hadn't been. The papers, I said as he got in beside me. The sale agreement, that was all fabricated, wasn't it? He started the engine, the car purring to life. Actually, no, I meant every word. I stared at him. But why? Why would you do this for me? Because 3 months ago, I met a brilliant man in a coffee shop who had developed a financial model that could revolutionize microlending in underserved communities. And when I tried to invest in his idea, he disappeared. I've been looking for you ever since. But I'm nobody, I said automatically, the words carved into me by years of conditioning. No, Julian said, pulling out into the Los Angeles night. You're Vincent Chase, and from what I've seen tonight, you're anything but nobody. We drove in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past like fallen stars. My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from numbers I recognized and many I didn't. I turned it off. Where are we going? I asked, as we merged onto the 405. Wherever you want, Julian said. Where do you want to go? I thought about it. For 28 years, every decision had been made in relation to Victoria. Where she would approve, what she would think, how she would react. Now, for the first time, the choice was entirely mine. Forward, I said. I want to go forward. Julian smiled, a real smile this time, warm and genuine. Forward it is. We ended up at a small diner in Echo Park, one of those 24-hour places with cracked vinyl booths and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. It was perfect. No one here cared that my shirt was stained with water and crushed flowers. No one here knew or cared about the Chase family drama. So, Julian said over coffee and pie, tell me about that financial model again. The micro-lending platform. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I talked about my ideas freely. No self-censoring, no apologizing, no minimizing. Julian listened, asked questions, challenged assumptions, built on concepts. We filled napkins with calculations, drew diagrams on placemats, debated implementation strategies until the sun started to rise over the San Gabriel Mountains. We could really do this, he said finally. This could work. We? If you'll have me as a partner. A real partner this time, not just a convenient fiction for dramatic effect. I looked at him across the table, this man who'd appeared like some kind of guardian angel when I needed him most. But he wasn't an angel, and he hadn't saved me. I'd saved myself. He'd just provided the opportunity. Equal partners? I asked. Equal partners. He confirmed. 50-50 split. Your idea, your model, your expertise, my capital, my connections, my experience navigating the market. What about Chase Industries? What about it? You'll sell your shares, take the money, and build something new. Something yours. Something mine. The words felt foreign but thrilling. Okay, I said. Partners. We shook hands across the table, and I felt something shift inside me, like tectonic plates realigning after an earthquake. This was what it felt like to choose your own path, to make decisions based on what you wanted, not what you were allowed. The next morning, after Julian dropped me at my apartment in Koreatown, I finally checked my phone. Over 200 messages. Most from numbers I didn't recognize. Los Angeles' gossip network working overtime. But there were dozens from Victoria, too. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. You'll regret this. I'm still your sister. Please answer me. We need to talk. Vincent, please. I deleted them all without responding. There was nothing to say. We'd said everything that needed saying in that ballroom. 3 weeks later, I stood in my new apartment in Manhattan Beach, boxes stacked around me, ocean breeze flowing through open windows. The space wasn't extravagant, but it was beautiful. Clean lines, hardwood floors, a kitchen that actually worked. Most importantly, it was mine. Julian and I had been spending most days together, refining the business plan, meeting with potential investors, building something real from the ground up. He'd become more than a business partner. He'd become a friend, possibly something more, though neither of us was rushing to define it. The doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, Victoria stood there, looking diminished. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes hanging loose. Her makeup was perfect, but it couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Hello, Vincent. Victoria. We stood there awkwardly, years of complicated history creating an invisible barrier between us. I'm seeing a therapist, she said suddenly. Marcus insisted, after everything. He said if there was any chance of us working things out, I needed to understand why I treated you the way I did. And do you understand? She looked away. I was jealous. You probably won't believe that, but it's true. You were always so smart, so independent. Mom and Dad loved that about you. They were proud of you in ways they never were of me. I had to be perfect to get their attention, but you just had to be yourself. So you decided to destroy me? I decided to make you need me. If you needed me, you couldn't leave me. If you were dependent on me, I'd always matter to you. She laughed bitterly. My therapist says it's a form of attachment disorder, fear of abandonment manifesting as controlling behavior. That doesn't excuse it, I said. No, it doesn't. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Vincent. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did to you, and I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I studied her. this sister who'd been my tormentor for so long. She looked broken, but not in the way she'd broken me. Her breaking was self-inflicted, the inevitable consequence of building a life on cruelty and lies. I appreciate you telling me, I said finally, and I hope therapy helps you. But I can't have you in my life, Victoria. Not now. Maybe not ever. She nodded, tears spilling over. I understand. I just wanted you to know. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. The company you're building, the independence, standing up to me. You're extraordinary, Vincent. You always were. I'm sorry I tried to make you believe otherwise. Then she was gone, her heels clicking down the hallway, out of my life maybe forever. 6 months later, our company, Bridge Financial, was gaining serious traction. We'd secured our Series A funding, hired our first 10 employees, and were beta testing with initial users. The platform was designed to provide microloans to small businesses in underserved communities, using an algorithm I developed to assess creditworthiness beyond traditional metrics. The Los Angeles Times ran a feature on us in their business section. From family shadow to fintech light, Vincent Chase's journey. I'd reluctantly agreed to the interview, knowing my story was part of what made our company compelling to investors. Then came the acquisition offer from Quantum Financial, $500 million. What do you think? I asked Julian as we stood in our downtown LA office, looking out at the city skyline. I think we've built something special, something that could help thousands of people. The question is whether we keep building or let someone else take over. A year ago, I would have taken the money without hesitation, I said. Security, safety, never depending on anyone again. And now? Now I know that money isn't freedom, choice is freedom, and I'm choosing to keep building. Julian turned to me smiling. Even if it means more 18-hour days, more stress, more uncertainty? Especially if it means those things, because they're my 18-hour days, my stress, my uncertainty. I'm not living in someone else's shadow anymore, Julian. I'm creating my own light. He kissed me then, right there in our office with the city as witness. It wasn't our first kiss, but it was the first one that felt like a beginning rather than a question. We turned down the quantum offer. The board thought we were crazy, but they trusted our vision. 2 years later, Bridge Financial went public. The IPO valued the company at $2 billion. My stake was worth more money than I could have imagined when I was counting pennies in that Koreatown studio. The night of the IPO, we held a celebration at the Beverly Hilton, in the same ballroom where everything had fallen apart and come together 3 years earlier. It seemed fitting, coming full circle. This time, I stood at the center of the room, not the edges. This time, when I spoke, people listened because I had something worth saying. 3 years ago, I said, addressing the crowd, I stood in this very room and discovered that the hardest chains to break are the ones we forge ourselves. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, what we're capable of, those stories can imprison us more effectively than any external force. I found Julian in the crowd, his eyes warm with pride and love. But here's what I learned. You can rewrite your story. You can choose a different ending. You can step out of the shadows, even if you've been there so long you've forgotten what light feels like. Bridge Financial exists because everyone deserves a bridge to their better future. Everyone deserves access to the resources they need to rewrite their story. The applause was thunderous. As the party wound down, Julian and I stood in the exact spot where he'd first put his hand on my shoulder. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't shown up that night? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted, but I like to think I would have found my way eventually. You didn't save me, Julian. You just reminded me that I was worth saving. I did the rest myself. 5 years have passed since that night. Bridge Financial is now international, and we've helped provide over $1 billion in microloans to underserved communities. Julian and I married last year in a small ceremony with just our closest friends. This morning, I received news that Victoria had a son. Marcus sent a photo, asking if I'd like to meet my nephew. For the first time since that rehearsal dinner, I'm considering it. Not for Victoria, but for that little boy who deserves to know he has an uncle who built an empire from ashes, who learned to create his own light. The sun is setting now over the Pacific, painting Los Angeles in shades of gold and pink. The shadows are long, but they're beautiful in their way, adding depth and dimension to the landscape. My name is Vincent Chase. I am no longer anyone's shadow or burden. I am the CEO of a billion-dollar company. I am someone who learned that the only approval that matters is your own, that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can choose to walk away. I am light from darkness, and my story is just beginning.